Tomorrow we'll lock her away. Those words. That voice. That cold, calculated tone. They didn't come with shouting or threats. They came through a crack in the bedroom door I wasn't supposed to be standing behind. I was 76 years old, standing in my son's hallway at 11:47 p.m., holding an empty water glass, and I heard my daughter-in-law Corinne say it like she was discussing dinner plans. Casual. Final. Like I was already gone. My son Garrett said nothing. No protest. No defense. Just the sound of papers rustling in his voice, quieter, asking, and the documents? Corinne's reply was instant. Dr. Haverstrom signed this afternoon. Cognitive decline. It's all legal. I stood there in the darkness, my heart hammering so hard I thought they'd hear it through the wall. The water glass trembled in my hand. This wasn't about me forgetting where I put my keys or mixing up a date. This was a plan. A conspiracy. And I was the target. Garrett and Corinne had moved me into their home 6 months ago after I'd fallen on my ranch. Just a stumble, nothing serious, but they insisted. "Mom, you can't be alone out there anymore," Garrett had said, his face full of concern I'd mistaken for love. I'd sold my cattle, leased my land, and moved into their guest room with 2 suitcases and a photo album. I thought I was being practical. I thought I was being loved. But standing there in that hallway, listening to them discuss my future like I was livestock to be managed, I realized the truth. They didn't want to care for me. They wanted me gone. And not just gone from their house. Gone. Locked away in some facility where I couldn't ask questions about the ranch lease payments that had stopped coming. Where I couldn't wonder out loud why Garrett needed my signature on so many documents. Where I couldn't exist as anything but a problem solved. I backed away from the door, my slippers silent on the carpet, and returned to my room. I didn't sleep. I planned. What would you do if you overheard your own family plotting against you? Drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. This story is just beginning, and you won't believe what happens next. I came down to breakfast at 7 a.m. like nothing had happened. Corinne was at the stove, making scrambled eggs with that tight smile she always wore around me. The smile that never reached her eyes. "Good morning, Vera," she said, her voice honey-sweet. She only used my first name when Garrett was in the room. Otherwise, it was just Mom said with the warmth of someone reading a grocery list. Garrett sat at the table, scrolling his phone, and barely looked up. I poured coffee with steady hands, even though every nerve in my body screamed to run. But I'm not a runner. I'm a rancher's widow. I've birthed calves in blizzards and buried a husband in drought. I don't panic. I strategize. "Garrett, honey," Corinne said, sliding eggs onto his plate, "don't forget we have that appointment at 2. She glanced at me, just briefly, and I saw it. The calculation. The timeline. They were moving today. I took a sip of coffee and said, "What appointment?" Corinne's smile tightened. "Oh, just some estate planning stuff. Boring paperwork." Garrett finally looked up. "Mom, we need to talk about setting up a better system for your care. You've been forgetting things." I held his gaze. My son. My boy who I'd rocked through nightmares and taught to ride before he could write his name. He wouldn't look at me for more than 3 seconds. "I haven't forgotten anything," I said quietly. "Not a single thing." The silence that followed was thick. Corinne turned back to the stove. Garrett returned to his phone. And I knew. The clock was ticking. I excused myself, went back to my room, and made 2 phone calls. The first was to my oldest friend, Dinah, who lived 3 towns over. I need you to pick me up tonight. Don't ask questions. Just come. The second call was to Lionel Kress, the lawyer who'd handled my husband's estate. Lionel, it's Vera Ashford. I need to see every document I've signed in the last 6 months. And I need to know if my power of attorney has been activated. His pause told me everything. Mrs. Ashford, he said slowly, I think you should come to my office. Today. Alone. I hung up and started packing. Not everything. Just what mattered. My marriage certificate. My ranch deed. The lockbox key I'd kept hidden in my Bible. And the one photograph of my husband Deacon that Corinne hadn't thrown away yet. I could hear her downstairs, on the phone now, her voice too low to make out words but high enough to carry tension. She was calling someone. Confirming something. I had maybe 8 hours before they made their move. I intended to be gone in 6. Vera's about to make the biggest decision of her life. What would you take if you had to escape your own home? Comment below, and hit that like button if you're rooting for her. Lionel Kress was 68, silver-haired, and the kind of lawyer who wore BOLO ties and kept hard candy on his desk. He'd known Deacon since they were kids, and he'd handled our affairs for 40 years. When I walked into his office at noon, he stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. Vera, he said, and his face told me everything before his mouth did. He opened a folder. Inside were documents. So many documents. My signature on every one. Except they weren't my signatures. They were close. Very close. But the loop on my V was wrong. The slant of my O was too sharp. Someone had practiced. Someone had forged. Power of attorney was filed 8 weeks ago, Lionel said, his voice tight with anger. Medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, and a preliminary petition for conservatorship due to diminished capacity. He slid another paper across the desk. This is a physician's evaluation from a Dr. Ernest Haverstrom stating you're unable to manage your own affairs. I stared at the name. I've never seen that doctor in my life. Lionel nodded. I know. I called his office this morning after you phoned me. He practices in Billings. He evaluated you via, he made air quotes, family consultation and medical history review. He never met you. He signed based on what Garrett and Corinne told him. My hands were shaking now. Not from fear. From rage. What about my ranch? Lionel's face went darker. The lease payments have been redirected to an account in Garrett's name. The property itself is still in your name, but there's a deed transfer document here, signed 2 weeks ago, moving it into a family trust controlled by Garrett as trustee. I felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart. Something deeper. The part of me that had believed, despite everything, that my son loved me more than he loved my land. Can they do this? I asked. Are these legal? Lionel leaned back and folded his hands. Legal? Technically, if the power of attorney and the conservatorship go through, yes. But Vera, these signatures are forged. That's fraud. That's elder abuse. That's criminal. He pulled out a fresh legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm filing an emergency motion to freeze all your assets and void the power of attorney. Second, I'm reporting Dr. Haverstrom to the State Medical Board. Third, we're getting you a full cognitive evaluation from an independent physician. And fourth, he looked at me hard, you need to get somewhere safe. Today. Because if they realize you've lawyered up, they'll accelerate their timeline. I thought about Corinne's whisper. Tomorrow we'll lock her away. Tomorrow was now today. I'm leaving tonight, I said. I have a friend coming. Lionel wrote something on his notepad, tore it off, and handed it to me. It was an address. That's my sister's cabin in Whitefish. It's empty. Take this key. Stay there. Don't tell Garrett. Don't tell anyone except your friend. He paused. Vera, I'm sorry. I should have caught this sooner. I took the key and stood. You didn't know to look. But I do now. And Lionel? I want everything. The ranch. The accounts. And I want him prosecuted. Vera just discovered her son has been stealing her life. Have you ever been betrayed by family? Share your story below. And subscribe, because Vera's fight is just getting started. I got back to Garrett's house at 2:15 p.m. They were gone. The appointment, whatever it was, had taken them out. I had the house to myself, and I moved fast. I went to Garrett's office, the one room I'd been subtly discouraged from entering. It's just messy, Mom. You don't need to clean in there. But I wasn't there to clean. I was there to find evidence. The filing cabinet was locked, but I knew Garrett. He'd always been predictable. The key was under the desk mat, exactly where Deacon used to keep his. Inside the cabinet were folders. Medical. Financial. Legal. And one labeled Sunridge Care Facility. I opened it. The first page was a brochure. A nursing home, 2 hours north, with photographs of smiling elderly people doing puzzles and holding flowers. The kind of place that looked lovely in pictures and felt like a prison in person. The second page was a contract. A bed reserved in my name. Start date, tomorrow. The third page made my blood turn cold. It was a letter from the facility's director thanking Garrett for the $8,000 deposit, confirming that I'd be in the memory care wing and that visitation would be at the family's discretion. Memory care. That's what they called the locked ward. The place where they put people who wandered. People who didn't remember their own names. I photographed every page with my phone. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I went to my room and finished packing. 1 suitcase. 1 duffel bag. I left behind the clothes Corinne had bought me. The slippers with the rubber soles for safety. The pillbox with my name labeled in her handwriting. I took my marriage certificate, my ranch documents, the photos of Deacon, and the small wooden box that held my mother's rings. Everything else could burn. At 4 p.m., Garrett and Corinne came home. I heard the garage door. Heard their voices in the kitchen, tense and low. I walked downstairs with my purse and a smile. I'm going to visit Dinah, I announced. Corinne turned sharply. Now? It's almost dinner. I shrugged. She's not feeling well. I thought I'd bring her some soup. It was a lie, but a plausible one. Garrett frowned. Mom, maybe you should wait until tomorrow. We need to talk tonight. I met his eyes. Talk about what? He glanced at Corinne. She gave the smallest shake of her head. Just family stuff, he said. It can wait until morning. I nodded. Okay. I'll be back by 8. I walked out the door, got into my car, and drove. I didn't go to Dinah's. I went to the bank. Vera's making her move. Do you think she'll get out in time? Drop your predictions below and smash that subscribe button. You do not want to miss what happens next. The bank manager's name was Phyllis Cordray, and she'd known me for 30 years. When I walked in at 4:45 p.m., 15 minutes before closing, she smiled and waved me to her office. "Vera! What brings you in?" I sat down and didn't waste time. "Phyllis, I need to know the status of every account with my name on it. And I need to withdraw cash." Her smile faltered. "How much cash?" I'd thought about this. Enough to disappear. Enough to fight. $15,000. Her eyes widened. "Vera, are you okay? Is everything all right?" I told her. Not everything. But enough. The forged signatures. The power of attorney I never signed. The nursing home reservation. Phyllis's face went pale, then red, then pale again. "My God," she whispered. She turned to her computer and started typing. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, and with every click, her frown deepened. "Vera, there have been a lot of transactions in the last 3 months." She turned the screen toward me. My ranch lease account, the one that should have had $4,200 deposited every month, was empty. The last deposit was June. It was now October. "Where did the money go?" I asked. Phyllis clicked again. "Transferred to an account ending in 7739. She checked another screen, "That's Garrett's business account." My stomach turned. "What about my savings?" She checked. Her face fell. "There's $320 left. There should be $47,000. I gripped the armrest of my chair. "Where did it go?" Phyllis printed a statement and handed it to me. "Withdrawals. $5,000 here. $8,000 there. $12,000. $15,000. All signed with my forged signature. All authorized under the power of attorney I'd never granted." "Phyllis," I said slowly, "can you reverse this?" She shook her head. "Not without a court order. The power of attorney on file gives Garrett full authority." Then she paused. "But Vera, there's one account he doesn't have access to. Your CD account. The one Deacon set up in 1998 with the survivor clause." I'd forgotten about that. A certificate of deposit Deacon had insisted on, locked for 25 years, maturing this year. "How much?" I asked. Phyllis checked. $68,000. It wasn't everything. But it was something. "I want to withdraw it. Today. Now." She nodded. "I'll need 2 forms of ID and your signature." "And Vera?" "I'm documenting this. If Garrett tries to fight it, I'll testify." 20 minutes later, I walked out of the bank with $68,000 in a cashier's check and $3,000 in cash. My phone buzzed. A text from Garrett. "Mom, where are you? Corinne's worried." I didn't respond. I drove to a Walmart parking lot, bought a burner phone with cash, and texted Dinah from the new number. "It's me. Pick me up at the Safeway on Route 12. 1 hour." Then I turned off my old phone, removed the SIM card, and threw it in a trash can. At 6:30 p.m., Dinah pulled up in her old Chevy truck. I climbed in with my suitcase and my duffel bag and my check in my life. "Drive," I said. And she did. Vera just emptied her accounts and vanished. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, this story gets even crazier. Lionel's sister's cabin was 2 hours north, tucked into pine trees and accessible only by a gravel road that wound through national forest land. It was small. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a wood stove, and a porch that overlooked a creek. It was perfect. Dinah helped me unload, then hugged me hard. "You call me every day," she said. "And if you need anything, money, a lawyer, a hitman, you call." I promised. Then she drove away, and I was alone. The first thing I did was build a fire. The second thing I did was cry. Not because I was scared. Because I was free. I spent the first 3 days in survival mode. I ate canned soup and crackers. I slept 12 hours a night. I sat on the porch and watched the creek and tried to remember who I'd been before I became someone's burden. On the 4th day, Lionel called my burner phone. Motions filed. Judge granted a temporary freeze on all accounts and property pending an investigation. Garrett's lawyer is furious. They're claiming you're mentally unstable and that this is proof of your decline. I laughed. Actually laughed. Let them claim it. I've got a cognitive evaluation scheduled for next week with Dr. Pembroke at the university. She's the best in the state. Good, Lionel said. Because Garrett filed a missing persons report. Says you're confused and wandering. Sheriff's Department is looking for you. My stomach dropped. Can they force me back? Lionel's voice was firm. No. You're not a danger to yourself or others. You're a competent adult who left voluntarily. But Vera, they're going to try to paint you as incompetent. You need to stay low until the evaluation and the hearing. I promised I would. But that night, lying in bed, I realized something. Staying low wasn't enough. I needed to fight back. And I needed leverage. The next morning, I called a private investigator named Marlo Chin. Dinah had recommended her. She's expensive but she's mean, Dinah had said. And right now, you need mean. Marlo agreed to meet me at a diner in Kalispell. She was 40-something, sharp-eyed, and didn't waste time on small talk. I told her everything. She took notes. Then she said, "I'll need a $5,000 retainer. And I need you to be okay with me finding ugly things." I wrote the check. "Find everything," I said. "I want to know every dollar, every lie, every signature. I want to bury him." Marlo smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I'll start with the doctor. Haverstrom. If he signed off on your evaluation without meeting you, he's violated every ethical standard there is. I'll pull his records, see who else he's done this for. Then I'll trace the money. If Garrett's moving your funds, there's a trail. And trails always lead somewhere interesting." She slid a card across the table. "Call me in 5 days. And Mrs. Ashford? Your son messed with the wrong woman." I believed her. And for the first time since that night in the hallway, I felt something other than fear. I felt power. Vera's hired a private investigator and she's coming for the truth. What do you think Marlo will find? Drop your theories below, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next chapter. 5 days later, Marlo called. "You're going to want to sit down for this." I was already sitting, on the porch with coffee, watching morning light filter through the pines. "Go ahead." Marlo's voice was tight with controlled anger. "Dr. Haverstrom has signed 23 cognitive decline evaluations in the last 2 years. All remote. All based on family consultations. All for patients he never met. And all 23 patients were transferred to the same nursing home network. Sunridge Care Facilities. He gets a $2,000 kickback per placement. It's a referral scheme. And it's illegal as hell. I felt my jaw clench. What about Garrett? Marlowe's tone shifted. That's where it gets interesting. Your son's in debt. Deep debt. His business, Ashford Land Management, is hemorrhaging money. He took out loans using your ranch as collateral without your knowledge. The forged power of attorney let him do it. He owes $340,000 to 2 different banks. The lease payments from your ranch have been going directly to loan payments. And the $47,000 he drained from your savings? That went to the nursing home deposit and to pay off a private loan shark named Vic Tomlinson. My heart was hammering. How did he get so deep? Marlowe sighed. Bad investments. A land development deal that fell through. And gambling. Your daughter-in-law Corinne has a problem. Online poker. She's lost over $60,000 in the last year. Garrett's been covering her debts. I felt sick. Not because of the money. Because my son had looked me in the eye and smiled while planning to lock me away to solve his problems. What else? I asked. Marlowe paused. He's already contacted a real estate agent about selling your ranch. The listing's not public yet, but the paperwork's drawn up. Sale price, $1.2 million. If he'd gotten you into that nursing home, he'd have had full control as your conservator. You'd have never seen a dime. I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, and felt the last thread of motherly denial snap. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't desperation. This was calculated theft. What do I do? I asked. Marlowe's voice turned sharp. You fight. I'm sending everything to Lionel and to the county prosecutor. This is fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Criminal charges. But Vera? You need to be ready for what comes next. When this goes public, your son's going to be arrested. And he's going to blame you. I thought about that. About Garrett, the boy I'd raised, the man I no longer knew. Let him blame me, I said. I spent 50 years on that ranch. I buried a husband there. I'm not letting my son sell it to cover his gambling debts. Marlowe's respect was audible. Good. I'll have a full report to you in 48 hours. And Mrs. Ashford? You're one tough lady. I hung up and stared at the creek. Tough. Maybe. Or maybe just tired of being treated like I was already dead. The truth is coming out and it's worse than Vera imagined. Are you as shocked as I am? Comment below and hit subscribe. The next chapter is where everything explodes. The competency hearing was set for November 14th. I drove down from Whitefish with Dinah, wearing my best dress and my mother's pearl earrings. Lionel met us at the courthouse. You ready? He asked. I nodded. Inside, the courtroom was small and sterile. Garrett and Corinne sat on one side with their lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit named Todd Brenneman. Garrett wouldn't look at me. Corinne stared straight ahead, her face blank. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Honor Gladwell. She had sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. Brenneman spoke first. He painted me as a confused, declining woman who'd been manipulated by outside influences into believing her family was conspiring against her. He called it late-stage paranoia and a common symptom of dementia. He presented Dr. Haverstrom's evaluation as evidence. Then Lionel stood. He was calm. Methodical. Deadly. He introduced Dr. Regina Pembroke, a neuropsychologist from the State University, who'd evaluated me 3 days prior. Dr. Pembroke's testimony was clinical and clear. Mrs. Ashford shows no signs of cognitive impairment. Her memory, reasoning, and decision-making abilities are all within normal range for her age. She scored 29 out of 30 on the MMSE. She is fully competent. Then Lionel dropped the hammer. He introduced Marlowe's report. The forged signatures. The fraudulent power of attorney. The kickback scheme with Dr. Haverstrom. The drained bank accounts. The gambling debts. Every piece of evidence, documented and verified. Judge Gladwell's face darkened with every page. When Lionel finished, she looked at Garrett. "Mr. Ashford, do you have a response to these allegations?" Garrett's lawyer whispered something to him. Garrett stood, and for the first time, he looked at me. His face was red. His voice shook. "She's lying. She's been confused for months. We were trying to help her." Judge Gladwell cut him off. "Mr. Ashford, I've reviewed the evidence. These signatures are forged. The power of attorney was filed fraudulently. And the financial transactions constitute elder abuse under state law. I'm not only denying your petition for conservatorship, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution." She turned to me. "Mrs. Ashford, all your accounts and property are restored to your sole control. The power of attorney is void. And I'm issuing a restraining order preventing Mr. Ashford from contacting you or accessing your property." The courtroom went silent. Garrett's face collapsed. Corinne started crying. Brenneman shuffled papers, already abandoning ship. Judge Gladwell banged her gavel. "We're adjourned." I stood and walked out. Dinah hugged me in the hallway. Lionel shook my hand. "You did it," he said. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Because the woman who'd walked into that courtroom still had a son. The woman who walked out didn't. Not really. Not anymore. Vera won. But at what cost? Tell me in the comments, was justice worth losing her son? And don't forget to subscribe, because the final chapters are going to blow your mind. 3 weeks after the hearing, the district attorney filed criminal charges. Fraud. Forgery. Elder financial abuse. Garrett was arrested at his home and released on bail 6 hours later. The local paper ran the story. Local man charged in elder abuse scheme. My phone, my old phone, which I'd reactivated, rang constantly. Reporters. Neighbors. People I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly concerned. I ignored most of them. But I answered when my granddaughter Bryn called. Bryn was 19. Garrett's daughter from his first marriage. She'd been away at college and had no idea what her father had done. "Grandma Vera," she sobbed, "is it true?" I told her the truth. All of it. She cried harder. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have," I stopped her. "Bryn, you have nothing to apologize for. You're not responsible for your father's choices." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Can I come see you?" I gave her the address of the cabin. She drove up the next weekend. We sat on the porch, drank tea, and talked. She told me she'd confronted Garrett. He'd blamed me. Said I'd turned vindictive. That I was punishing him for trying to help. "Do you believe that?" I asked her. Bryn shook her head. "No. I saw the court documents. I saw the bank records. Grandma, what he did was, she couldn't finish. I held her hand. He made choices. And now he's facing consequences. That's not vindictive. That's justice. Bryn stayed for 2 days. When she left, she hugged me and said, "I'm proud of you." Those words meant more than the court victory. More than the restored accounts. More than anything. Because Bryn saw me. Not as a burden. Not as a problem. But as a person. As her grandmother. And that was worth fighting for. A month later, Garrett took a plea deal. 5 years probation. Restitution of $47,000. Community service. No jail time, but a criminal record. Corinne filed for divorce 2 weeks after the sentencing. I heard through Dinah that she'd moved back to her mother's house in Idaho. Garrett sold his business, sold his house, and moved into a rental apartment. I didn't contact him. He didn't contact me. The silence between us was absolute. And I was okay with that. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. Some people, once revealed, should stay revealed. I moved back to my ranch in December. The house needed work, months of neglect had taken a toll, but it was mine. Truly mine. I hired a new property manager. I restocked the cattle. I planted a garden. And every morning, I walked the fence line with my coffee and remembered who I'd been before I'd become someone's inconvenience. Deacon used to say, "Land doesn't lie. It'll show you the truth if you're paying attention." He was right. And the truth was this: I was stronger than anyone had given me credit for. Including myself. Vera rebuilt her life from the ashes. Could you do the same? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe. There's one final chapter and it's the most powerful one yet. I wrote Garrett a letter. I never sent it. But I needed to write it. Needed to put the words somewhere, even if he'd never read them. It sat in a drawer in my kitchen for weeks. Then one day, I took it out to the porch, read it one last time, and burned it in the fire pit. The smoke curled up into the Montana sky, and I watched it disappear. This is what it said. "Garrett, I don't know when you stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as an asset. Maybe it was gradual. Maybe it was sudden. Maybe it was always there, under the surface, and I just didn't want to see it. I taught you to ride a horse when you were 5. I sat up with you through fevers and heartbreaks. I worked that ranch for 40 years so you'd have something to inherit. And you were willing to lock me away to take it early. I'm not writing this for an apology. I don't think you have one to give. I'm writing this because I need you to know that I survived you. I survived your lies, your theft, your betrayal. I survived the night I stood in your hallway and heard your wife plot my erasure. And I didn't just survive. I won. Not because I took you to court. Not because you're facing consequences. But because I'm still here. Still standing. Still whole. And you can't take that from me. I don't forgive you. Forgiveness would mean you deserve grace, and you don't. But I release you. I release the idea of the son I thought you were. I release the hope that you'll wake up and realize what you've done. I release the anger, because carrying it only hurts me. You're going to live your life, and I'm going to live mine. And we're going to do it as strangers. That's the consequence. Not jail. Not probation. But the permanent, irreversible knowledge that you destroyed the one person who loved you unconditionally. I hope, Someday, that keeps you awake at night. But I won't be awake wondering. Because I'm finally free. I watched the letter burn until there was nothing left but ash. Then I went inside, made dinner, and called Bryn. She was coming for Thanksgiving. Dinah was coming too. We were going to cook a turkey and make pie and sit on the porch and talk about everything except Garrett. We were going to build a new tradition. A new family. The kind built on choice, not blood. The kind that doesn't require you to shrink or apologize or disappear. That night, I stood on my porch and looked out at the ranch. The land rolled out under the stars, dark and endless and mine. The wind carried the smell of pine and earth and cold. Somewhere out there, Garrett was living his smaller life, paying his debts, carrying his shame. And I was here. 76 years old. Alive. Unbroken. Unmoved. The girl I'd been would have never believed I'd end up here. But the woman I'd become? She knew all along. I just had to remember her. Thank you for staying with Vera through this entire journey. Her story is a reminder that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to reclaim your power, and to refuse to be erased. If this story touched you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me what Vera's story meant to you. And remember, you are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not too old to fight back. Stay strong. Stay free. And I'll see you in the next story.